recording, so we will have this to look back to at another time. Let's see, yeah. So good afternoon, teachers. This is Joe Michelina, MCS Math Coordinator. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. We're going to be doing the Algebra 2 training right now for the next 2 hours. And we know this is your vacation time, so thank you for taking the time to make sure we know how to use this curriculum. I do want you to know I will not be putting a link in for attendance. I'm just going to take attendance based on the chat. So actually now would be a great time for any of you to just type in hello or good afternoon, or give me a thumbs up or something so that I know you're here. Veronica Davalos and I, the MCS coach, and we will be monitoring chat best we can. Let's please keep all of our questions on Savvas right now. I know there's lots of questions about what the district, with virtual learning and a lot of this other stuff. So let's keep our questions on making sure these 2 hours we have with Carlton, we know how to use the curriculum, where to find everything on their platform. And then if you have questions for specific to MCS, then Veronica and I can help you afterwards. And so with that, without further ado, it's all you. We are very fortunate, thankful to have Carlton back with us to go through this training. So welcome, Carlton. It's all you.
Thanks, Joe, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure I would recognize a lot of you. I wish I could see you there in person. Of course, right now, I wish I could see almost anyone in person, but I hope you guys are having a good summer, and I know you're cranking up for the new year, and we're going to jump right in there. And I'm going to rely on a lot of the experience that many of you have had over the spring and during the previous trainings. As Joe mentioned, we're going to be cramming into 2 hours what's normally a 6-hour long session. And so I want to hit the most important things. And primarily, I want to make sure that we highlight the tools that you'll be able to use to support your students in a distance learning environment. And here's the agenda. Just wanted to show you that quickly, what we're going to be going through and the time allotted. And then the objectives, what I want you guys to take away from this session will be the next slide here. And the last bullet point really is the most important thing that I want you guys to leave today's session with. After we're finished, my goal, my hope is that you'll feel comfortable enough exploring the platform, tinkering around with it, that you'll be able to plan for your first day of instruction, whether you see your students in person or if you're going to be completely a distance learning school. And so we're going to explore all the, well, not all, but we're going to explore a lot of the components that are built into the program that will help support you and your students, even if you may be miles away from each other. So if you aren't already on your own account, your own Savvas Realize account, go ahead and log into that while I'm showing you guys what you and your students will receive. Your students, this is the student component list. And all of this is pretty standard, but I want to make sure that you understand that each student is also going to receive a consumable textbook called the Student Companion. So every year, your students are going to receive a new copy of that. It's just going to show up like magic in the mail at the beginning of the year, and so you'll be able to distribute those every single year for your students. And this is one of the places that your students can show their work. They can do their practice problems and things like that. And we'll look in detail at what that student companion looks like a little bit later. And then, of course, the teacher components. What I did want to point out from this list is that second bullet point, the Teacher's Edition program overview. Some of you may have heard me say before that my mom always likes to tell me that when all else fails, read the instructions. Well, that Teacher's Edition program overview, that is the instruction manual for the program. You should have received a copy of that. It's a thin wire-bound, spiral-bound notebook, and so you can open that up and read it at your leisure. It's also available online, and I'll show you where that lives too. So, if you are into your own accounts, great. And Joe, does anyone need the demo account? I can just skip over this if no one needs it.
I don't think so. And I didn't ask that question early on. Does anybody need that? If you need this demo account, just pipe in. No, I think they were all able to get in. So let's go ahead and go.
Okay, sweet. So we are going to cruise, and this is the almost the last slide I'm going to show you for the entire presentation, because then the rest of the time we're going to go live, all right, and dig into the program itself. So by now, hopefully you guys have set up your accounts and you are looking at a screen that looks similar to this. And of course, each of you have chosen your own background, and you're going to have a different list of classes, maybe in a different order than what I have, but it should look similar to this. And if at any time you have any questions, you know, raise that hand or chat it in, and Joe will get those over to me. And we're going to very quickly go through this page because most of you already know how to navigate around here. But there are a couple of new things I wanted to point out, and a couple of important things I want to point out. First of all, if you don't pay attention to anything else I talk about this afternoon, or you forget everything else, the one thing that you should remember is this question mark. And let me turn on my cursor halo here. At the top of the page, you see the question mark. Click this question mark. It says program training. We'll click that. And the very first item in this list, the help for this page button, click that button. And when you do, you get this pop-up window. Now, this is a window for contextual help, and it depends on where you are in the program. So if you're at a lesson level, you're going to get lesson-specific stuff. If you're at the topic level, topic-specific stuff, etc. But most importantly, down here in the bottom right corner is this blue rectangle that says Open a New Tab. Click this, and it's going to open a separate tab in your browser. And this is probably the most important single, place I could take you right now, because this is your go-to for those questions that you just, can't remember. How did he say to make a group? Or, how do I make an assignment? Or how do I check a grade? This is where you're going to go. So bookmark this page right now. I highly recommend that. And most of you will be able to figure out what to look for, or, what answers are, or where the answers are, by hovering over these drop-down menus, and notice how all these options just appear. So as I'm going through and I look at classes, for instance, and I want to know more about groups, how to assign groups, there you go, class groups. And so this is a very quick and easy way for you to access information that you'll be able to get your program up and running. There's no way you'll remember everything we talked about, and we can't cover everything that the program can do. So this is your go-to right here, the most important thing. Now, I'm going to click back on the Savvas Real Life platform. And when I say platform, I'm talking about the website, basically. But we call it a Savvas platform. So I'm going to click back at Savvas Realize, and I'll close this pop-up window and back to the question mark. And then this is the second most important thing that I can show you for the day under the question mark, and that is the program training button. So underneath help for this page, click program training, and this will take you to another website called mysavvastraining.com. Now, it should log you into your account automatically. You'll see your name up there. And this is where you can create a list of favorites if you want, but I want you guys to type in enVision in the search field at the box at the top there, and then hit return. And when you do, you're going to see all of our enVision math titles just magically appear. And it's the 2018 AGA Common Core. Click the star next to that, and it's going to become a favorite in your favorites list. And that way it's easy for you to find. Just click on your programs and it'll show right up. Now, if I click on this resource, it's going to take me to another page. And this page is why I wanted to show you this resource in the training programs first. As you know, Desmos is scattered throughout the curriculum from, believe it or not, all the way down from third grade, all the way up through high school, Algebra 2. You're going to find Desmos interactivities built into the program. On this page, you'll notice these hyperlinks for a tutorial that you can do yourself, or you can push out to your students. and share the link with them so you guys can be familiar with how to use the Desmos interactive graphers and calculators. Now, many of you may already know how to do that, but this is a good refresher, or for those who don't, there you go. And then notice that the near the top of the page, we have the overview with those Desmos links, and then we have this button that says on-demand training, and if I click there, this will reveal all of these video tutorials, handouts I can print out for myself for quick reference. So this is another place that you can go for detailed instruction and reminders on how to do whatever. And then finally, I'll scroll back up towards the top of the page because it's next to the program button that you see chat/support. If you click that, this will take you to another site where if you just can't figure it out on your own, this is where you go to interact with a live human being. So you can start a chat. If someone is online and available, this icon will be in color, blue and green, as you see here. You can leave a message if it's not that urgent. And then on the right side of the page is that all important tech support phone number right there. If for some reason you just can't get the platform to work on your computer or whatever, there's the tech support number. All right. And I'll go back to the top of the page. And once I mentioned earlier, clicking a star next to the resource that you'd like to make a favorite. Once you click the star and then click on programs, all of the components that you have favorited will show up here. So it's very easy for you to find what you need right there. All right. So I'm going to go back to the Realize platform. Notice again, I have 3 tabs open. One of those is the that first help page I showed you. The next tab is mysavvastraining.com, and then the original tab is the Savvas platform. And then just to review quickly, that question mark, the most important thing I can show you today, right here. All right. So remember that, and that will get you far. So I'm going to close the help tabs in my browser just to keep things neat and clean. And then the next thing we're going to briefly talk about, if you click on the silhouette on the right side, it says this silhouette here, your name will pop up, settings, announcements to sign out. Click on the settings button. Now, many of you may have already done this, but if you haven't, this is your opportunity to add all 3 of the titles in the AGA library. So if you want to add Algebra 1 to your library, you can do that. If you want to add geometry, you can do that. And to do so, click on My Programs, and you'll see those 3 titles. Now on my screen, since this is my master account, I've got all kinds of titles, but on your account, you'll see those 3 titles. And you can click those, and then those will be added into your personal teacher's account. And the reason I mention that is because, since you're teaching Algebra 2, one of the things that's awesome about teaching Algebra 2, and that was one of my favorite courses, Algebra 2 and Calculus were my favorite courses that I used to teach. But one of the great things about Algebra 2 is we know kids come in and they're always ready, and we need no review whatsoever, right? Well, so if you're teaching Algebra 2 and you really do need to go back into geometry or Algebra 1 and spiral concepts or help review kids and fill in the gaps, you can actually go into those other titles and pull materials from Algebra 1 to give to your students, or maybe review some geometry concepts. So by adding everything to your teacher's account, now you have access to all 3 titles for your students. 2 more things to show you on this page. So the bell at the top, this is a new icon. Any kind of notification that you get from Savvas, you'll get an icon notice, a little red circle or a number that'll pop up here to let you know that you have a message. And my library, if you click on my library, you'll see how my library and this bell are connected in just a second. But if you click on my library at the top, this is where anything that you create or import into the Savvas Realize platform, this is where it's going to live. So if you want to, import your favorite note-taking guide, or maybe a project document, or a review sheet, whatever, you can import it as just a file here, and it will live in your library forever. And your students won't be able to see it until you assign it. So this way, year after year, you can go back, you find all your resources in one handy dandy place. And then, you know, if you created a quiz last year and you really like that quiz and want to give it to them again, here's the quiz that we created. And I'll go to the three dots and notice there's the assign button. I can edit it, remove it, etc. Now, this next feature is something that we're super excited about. And this is one of our most requested features. And this highlights that we really do listen to what teachers ask for. And that's the ability to share assignments, all right? So right now, I have a couple of assignments that have been shared with me. Right now, the way sharing works is that someone who has administrative access or administrative credentials to the real-life platforms will be able to create tests, customized tests and quizzes, and then share those with the math team. So a math coach, for instance, who might have admin access, or one of the math ambassadors, for instance, someone at the district level. If there is a common assessment that they want everyone to take, then they can create that common assessment, share it with you, and then when you receive it, it will live right here in the Shared With Me section of my library. And then I simply click the three dots, and I can assign that to my students from there. If someone shares a document with you or an assessment with you, then you'll also see a notification here on this bell. So that's how the bell, excuse me, the bell and the library are connected. If someone creates a common assessment and shares it with you, you'll see an alert here, and you'll know that you can go to your library. So from here, I'm going to skip all the way over to the left and click on Realize and go home. And I'm going to pause here for a second to see if anyone has any questions about the home page here. And Joe, if you could help me out.
Well, Carlton, since we've done a few of these trainings, I bet you can guess what question was asked, and it had to do with your share.
Yes. So, yep, I can read your mind from afar. So we are continuing to work on the share capabilities. We're rolling it out in stages. Right now, admin level access is able to share with teachers. But we also know that another huge request is for teachers to be able to share between peer groups and even share different types of things, not just quizzes. So no, that is on in the pipeline. I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but I know that our development team knows about it and is working on it. Anything else?
Yeah, that was the only question that came up. And you guys, this is a really well, we do have another one now. I just lost my mind because I read Sarah's question. If we are sharing something, so like let's say we put out a test, right? It'll pop up in their notifications. That's how they'll know we share something. Is that correct?
Right there in the bell. Yep.
So Sarah, I think you wouldn't necessarily need an email from us. You could get it just from, you'll see it there. And I think that was, I lost my train of thought. So move on.
Sorry, happens to me all the time. All right, so here we are back on the home screen. Now we're going to dive into the actual program. So from the home screen, I'll click on the Browse button. And this opens, for you guys, it'll open your three different math levels. And, you know, if your district chooses to add additional math products down at the middle school level, then potentially you could have access to those titles as well. And that way you really could, you know, go way back down in sixth grade and pull up some stuff from, you know, sixth grade to review for your students. But anyway, in the meantime, you have access to these three levels here. And I'm going to choose Algebra 2. That's where we'll be spending all our time today. And when you first create your account, it looks like this. The default view is the thumbnail view like this with these big tiles. I'm going to switch it from thumbnail view to list view. Notice above the the green bar, I can toggle views. I'm going to switch to list view because to me, list view looks more like the traditional table of contents, and it's just a lot easier for my brain to see the one-to-one correspondence between the realized platform and the components here versus the components in the table of contents in our teacher's edition or student edition. So if you have your teacher's edition handy, you can open that up and scroll to the table of contents, and you'll notice it matches up exactly, the same sequence, order, and so on. All right. So from here, we're going to go and focus a fair amount of time above the thin black line in this white space here. All right. And the first thing we're going to look at is tools. Now, we're not going to look at all the tools that are in here. So, I suggest you take some time and play around with these tools on your own to see what's there. Just note that these first 5 pieces here, math tools, glossary, and the Desmos calculators, both you and your students have access to these 5. But the one thing that I do want to spend a little bit of time on, go ahead and click on Answers and Solutions. So this is a software package that you'll need to install on your machines. And Joe and Veronica have already worked with tech for this, and you'll be able to install it on your local machines. And you can install the Answers and Solutions software package for all 3 titles for your device. Now, these are the answers and solutions for anything in the textbook. All right. So, whether it's the practice and problem solving at the end of each lesson, or if it's the the try-its that are scattered throughout the lesson, those are all going to live within the software package that you install from this website right here. All right. So back to Realize homepage, or the Realize tab. That Answers and Solutions software will allow you to print out just the answers or the worked out solutions to every single problem. In the textbook, you can select custom ranges of questions. You can choose between just answers or worked out solutions. Like I said, you can save those answer keys as a PDF, or you can print them. So it is a powerful piece of programming that you'll have access to. And again, that's for anything in the textbook. Now, I keep emphasizing that this is where the answers and solutions are for the textbook, because we're going to find answers and solutions to the digital resources in a different location. So 2 places for answers and solutions. First of all, if it's a textbook, it's going to be in this software package. If it's one of the digital assessments online on the Savvas Realize platform here, you'll find those answer keys somewhere else, and I'll show you where those are soon. Then from Answers and Solutions, this is the next place you would want to go. So you would download ExamView for your computer. And ExamView, many of you may be familiar with it. It is a worksheet generating software package, and it'll allow you to create printable assessments and worksheets, basically. So this is your traditional worksheet generator that I'm sure you guys have used, either Kudasoft or Infinite Math or some other worksheet generator. It's very similar. It comes with a library of questions that you can just select and build your assessment with. And there are lots of options and things you can play around with in here. But again, this is designed primarily for those customized print assessments. Now, we'll also be able to create and customize digital assessments too, but there's a time and place for both. And so that's what the ExamView software package is all about. Now, from tools, we're going to go to the next item here above the thin black line and click on eText. And this is where we're going to see some pretty cool stuff. So you have 3 options here within your eText link. You have the Teacher's Edition, and I would like you to click on that if you would, please, Teacher's Edition. And when you open Teacher's Edition, you see this page that says Open in New Window. Go ahead and click that. And what that does is it's going to open your textbook in a separate tab. Now notice as the textbook is unzipping here, if I look at my browser, I have it's called Realize Reader tab along the top. So there's my textbook, but I still have this tab that says Savvas Realize. Well, this is the Realize platform. So if I click on Savvas Realize, it takes me back to this page. I'll be able to toggle between the digital resources available in Realize and the resources that are available in the Teacher's Edition or the Student Editions. Now, if I'll just hold off talking any more about toggling back and forth for just a second, because I want to talk about how to navigate your textbook here. In the top right corner, you see a menu. Click on that menu. We have a table of contents that pop up. This is our navigation pane. If you click the table of contents, now we can, search for the topic that we're looking for with our students, and we're actually going to be working in topic 7 later. So I'm going to click the triangle next to topic 7. It will expand that view, and we are going to be working with lesson 3 in topic 7. So I'll go ahead and click that, and it will take me right here to topic 7, lesson 3. And here is the planning page, all right, for the lesson. I'm going to close the table of contents, and I'm going to close this navigation pane for now, just to make my screen look a little bit cleaner. What you're looking at online here, this is an exact replica of the print edition that you teachers have. So it's going to look the same content, same order, same pagination, the whole 9 yards. If you want to see both pages at once, click 2-page view. And if you have super eyes, then you can work from this view. Otherwise, we work from the single page view. And at the beginning of every lesson, there's a brief lesson overview and lesson planner you can refer to. And when I click the next page, this will take me to step 1 and the lesson. And the program is based on a 4-step lesson plan. And that's one of the things that Teacher's Edition program overview, that thin wire-bound, spiral-bound booklet we'll talk about and go into detail. 4-step lesson plan. The first step is always called Explore. And there are 3 different types of exploration activities. This one happens to be Explore and Reason. And then this is where you can go in and get some tips on how you want to conduct this Explore activity with your students. So just a little bit of background on the importance of step 1 in this lesson. Giving your students this step 1 Explore and allowing them to have time to dig into it and play with the content is one of the most important aspects of teaching a lesson. Because this is where students are going to play with manipulatives. This is where they're going to, change things in a vertex form of a quadratic equation, for instance, to see how it affects the quadratic. And so they're going to be able to draw a lot of conclusions just from this first step right here before we even get into the instruction part of things. Now, when it comes to planning for distance learning, I'm not sure what your schedule is going to look like, but most schools, my daughter's school, for instance, they're going to be meeting virtually, I think, a couple of times a week in some classes. Anyway, it's just it's crazy. But most likely, you're not going to want to spend a lot of valuable synchronous time with your students, and your students are just working silently on their own thing here. What you can do then to take advantage of your time is to assign this step to your students ahead of time, and maybe they could do this as homework the night before, just as an idea. So anyway, this goes into detail, talks about the first step and how you might conduct this step with your students, and then when you're ready, of course, you hit the next button, and we go to the next page, and so on and so on. And so that's how we can very quickly navigate through the Teacher's Edition. Notice along the bottom of the Teacher's Edition, You have tips, whether it's for ELL students or advanced students or struggling students. You're going to find lots of tips there. Also, the on the right side of the page, this kind of gray background, this is a copy of the student edition. So you don't have to have necessarily the student edition open next to you, because you can see what the page from the student edition looks like. And I did want to mention, by the way, and Joe, this is something that I don't think I mentioned this in Algebra 1 and Geometry, but you know, at the beginning of step 2, we always introduce the essential question. So first time I got this curriculum, I saw this introduce the essential question, and I read the whole freaking page, and I'm going back and forth, and I'm saying, where is the lesson essential? I don't see the lesson essential question. I'm ripping my hair out. And that's because the lesson essential question is over here in the student edition. So make sure you see that lesson essential question here. It's going to help you when you are planning lessons for your students, all right? So we're not going to spend any more time on the teacher's edition for now. I'm going to switch back to Savvas Realize. So I go back to the Savvas platform, the Realize platform. And we see this window again, and this is where a lot of teachers can think, oh, great, I've lost, you know, the digital resources. No, not at all. Realize is still open. It's just that you have to exit out of this page that that came up. So I click the exit button, and now we're back into Realize, and I can navigate all over the place from here. Now, the next version of the e-text I want you to open is the one that just says Student Edition Algebra 2, not the interactive Student Edition, just the regular Student Edition Algebra 2. So click on that. We see that familiar window. Click on that. And the navigation is the same for you and for students. So what they see, you know, same kind of tools that they have access to. We can click on Menu, Table of Contents. I'm going to go back to Topic 7 again and Lesson 3. Since that's where we'll be spending a little bit of time today. And here we are at the beginning of lesson 3. This is the student view. Here's step 1, explore and reason. We talked a little bit about. But there are some things that, there are some tools that your students can use with this e-text. Now, just so you know, these same tools work on the teacher's edition. But instead of taking the time to show you on both, I'm just going to show you these tools on the student edition here. You know, if I'm reading here and as a student, I see a word I may not be familiar with. So I'm going to double click this word just as an example. And I say, you know what? Mr. Jones, my teacher, told me that any words I don't know, I should highlight in blue. I'm going to highlight that word, and I'm going to say, you know, what is cosine? Or maybe I'll look up cosine, whatever. Take some notes on it. I save that note, and I close the note-taking guide there. I come down, and you know, maybe there's something else I want to highlight. Maybe I'm just going to grab something at random here. But maybe it is a main idea or a concept, and so I've told my students ahead of time that, you know, mathematical concepts should be highlighted in yellow. So as you can see, we can highlight and annotate the book as much as we want, and with different colors, different shapes, and so forth. Well, so what do students do with these highlights now? Let's go back over to our navigation panel. I'm going to close the table of contents. And there's this annotations and highlights link in the navigation bar. When I click this, annotations and highlights, everything that I have highlighted will appear. If I took a note, I'll see this little note symbol, and, you know, shows me what the note is. I'll be able to sort all my annotations and highlights by, you know, date, style, or color. And that's why, if, you know, I said, if you wanted students to highlight all the mathematical concepts they see in yellow, they can very quickly, you know, filter by color, and all the main ideas will come up. And then notice they can actually export all of the annotations and highlights, and then maybe make their own study guide or their own vocabulary list. So this is one of the ways that they can actually dig into the textbook, write all over it, take as many notes as they want, and then they can export these notes and maybe use them on a test or use them in a project or whatever. I'm sure you guys will come up with all kinds of ways that they can use this tool here. I can highlight a page, bookmark a page by clicking the ribbon at the top. And if I close this part of the navigation bar again, and go back to menu and then select bookmarks, then I can just very quickly jump from one bookmark to the next. And so again, this works for you and your students. Any questions, Joe, on the teacher's edition or the student edition? Do we have any questions?
So Carlton, nothing has come up in the chat, but I do remember what I wanted to say before, and that was this is a small enough group that rather than them having to chat to us, if they wanted to just, when questions come up, when you ask for questions, now's a great time to unmute and just go ahead and ask. So if anybody has anything, if you want to just blurt it out now, now's a good time with what he's been talking about so far. And so not hearing anything, let's move on, Carlton.
Cool. All right. So, and by the way, just again, to keep my browser clean, I'm going to close this Answers and Solutions application tab, but I'm going to leave the two textbooks open and Savvas Realize. So I'll click back at Savvas Realize, hit the exit button, and this is going to take me back here. And now we're going to take a look at the Interactive Student Edition. So before I click on that, though, as I mentioned before, the Teacher's Edition is identical to the hard copy Teacher's Edition. The Student Edition, the e-text, is identical to the hard copy that the students have. The Interactive Student Edition, though, is going to look quite different. So go ahead and click on the Interactive Student Edition, and we'll open it in a new window. The reason the Interactive Student Edition looks so different is because we have tons of embedded digital interactivities throughout the textbook. So the content is exactly the same, the concepts, the order, and all that, but it's going to look significantly different. So from this table of contents here, if I go back down to topic 7, like before, and click the triangle next to it, it'll take us here to topic 7. Then, I can, what's the topic essential question? Topic vocabulary. You'll notice there are hyperlinks built in. Topic overview. This is an easy way for me to navigate this lesson. So now as a student, I'll just click lesson 7-3. Takes me to the beginning of the lesson. There's that lesson essential question that we will be answering as part of the lesson. The Common Core State Standards, I'm sure every kid has memorized those. Here's an I can statement, and then finally the lesson overview. Students can very quickly navigate from piece to piece here, or they can just click the next button, and here we are at that first explore activity that we had talked about before. So take a look at this. And if you are looking at lesson 7-3, students are going to be looking at the relationship between the real number system and the unit circle here. And you'll notice this is one of those Desmos interactivities that I talked about before. And so, from this interactivity, we can, adjust the angles here and try to make some draw some conclusions based on the angles and what we see with the coordinates. We have a couple of questions that we need to ask. So this having this capability to play around with the mathematical concepts digitally is very powerful for students because, for any of us who've been teaching for any amount of time, trying to show kids dynamic stuff like this on a static whiteboard is just crazy. And the fact that students will be able to play around with it on their own too is fantastic. So this is what the student edition, the interactive student edition looks like. It has, like I said before, embedded within it Desmos interactivities. It has sections here where students can write their answers. There are notebook entries where students can answer questions regarding the math practices. And so this is one of the ways that the program takes a potentially DOK level 1 or DOK level 2 activity and turn it into DOK level 2 and 3 is by answering a question. Describe your thinking. How, why did you come up with that, or whatever. So students can write their responses here, and those will be saved. And then any notes that they take will be saved in there. If you click on menu, again, they can annotate and highlight notebook. You're familiar with what that looks like. The notes that they've taken, the answers or the questions that they've answered will live here in the notebook. And so this is one of the ways that students can interact with the content on their own. So this e-text is available to your students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's from chapter 1 all the way through the end of Algebra 2, or topic 1 rather, all the way through the end of Algebra 2. Your students can access this at any time, just like a hard copy of the textbook that might live on the bookshelf at home. But you also, as a teacher, have the option of assigning individual lessons from the textbook to your students. When you assign us a lesson, they'll get this entire lesson that we're looking at here. We can look at the next page, and you can go through some of the content that they're going to have access to. This one includes a video, as you can see, and always look for the circles here. This just means this has 2 parts with the triad and so on. Your student will receive this entire lesson as a package, just a single, assignment link. They can click on that, and now any of the work that they do within this lesson, after they submit it, you will actually be able to review their work. So this is one of the ways that you can utilize this platform in a distance learning environment. You can assign a whole lesson if you want, and then if you want to spot check a few students, or I don't know if you want to check every student, but or you can even, pull up some results from students here and share them out with students during a screencast or a team meeting or something like that. This is just one of the ways that you can use the digital platform as a distance learning tool. Now, I'm going to back up just a little bit here.
Carlton, while you're there, the question just came up. It said, can we see their answers? So
yes, yep.
You will see their answers there, right?
Yeah, you will see their answers. Once you're looking at student data and the student assignments, you can actually see individual student answers. Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. So let's take a look and let's compare what we see here. So this is the interactive student edition. This is the student edition. Explore and reason. Explore and reason. I'll go to the first example, because this is where we're really going to see some important stuff. So here's example 1 in that interactive student edition. Notice that in the student edition, example 1, let's see, is exactly the same, 2 pi over 3. For some reason, my graphics are off here, but 2 pi over 3 is the angle, and here 2 pi over 3 is the angle. Teacher's edition, same thing. Now, this is where I want you guys, if you have access to your student companions, that consumable workbook I told you about, break that out and turn the student companion to page 177. And it looks like this. So the lesson I chose to demonstrate some of these interactivities and capabilities, this lesson lends itself very nicely to students actually engaging in a digital interactivity. So that interactive student edition, where students can change the angles and see if they can figure out a relationship between the points along the circle. That's great for that Desmos interactivity. However, some students may prefer paper. Or you may be working in a lesson where the activity maybe there isn't a digital activity for the first part. Well, this is where you can choose, or your students can choose, to use the student companion, because step 1 of every lesson is always included in the student companion as a page. Here it is. This is step 1 right here. So students could potentially, instead of working, online, they could work in their student companion here and write their answers. Same questions, the same order. There's that habits of mind question that we talked about before, and how students can enter that in their notebook online. So it's exactly the same thing, but they're doing it on the student companion. So this is one of the ways that you can use the student companion with your students. Now I'm going to go to the next page on the student companion, and we're going to look at example 1 in the student companion. And remember that we are trying to figure out the sine and cosine of each of these angles according to this example 1. And the first angle we see is 4 pi over 3 radians. That's the first angle. If I switch back to the student addition, for instance, here's the student addition, and here's example 1. Well, example 1 on the student companion was 4 pi over 3 radians, but example 1 in the student edition is not 4 pi over 3 radians. So what's up with that? Well, what we're seeing here in the student companion, this is an instructional example. This shows students how to do something. If we click the next button, look at the next page in the student edition, we'll notice that the triads, with the red, red circle, written red triad, it's the triad examples that we see in the student companion. There's triads, the red circle. There's A is 4 pi over 3, B is 3 pi over 4. Yep, 4 pi over 3, 3 pi over 4. So that's where we're going to see the triads here in the student companion. And notice this is where the students have room to actually show their work. So the student companion is a great tool to use for formative assessment. So students are working on, this example. They've gone through the instructional part of the example in their textbook, or online with Realize, or maybe, during a team meeting with you. And then when they're ready to practice it, then this is one of the places that they can, demonstrate understanding of that example. And then example 2 we'll look at in the student edition. Here's example 2. What is the sine of angle theta if cosine theta is -3 over 5? That's the main instructional example, but it's these triads that students will see in the student companion right there. So that's how the student companion works with the student edition and the online textbook. So why didn't we include the instructional examples in the student companion? Because if we did, then the student companion would be as big as the New York City Yellow Pages. It would just be way too unwieldy. And so that's, if the students have their student edition and the student companion side by side, they'll be able to work from one to the other like that. Now, as we're working through the lesson flow, and working through the whole lesson, you can, let me go back to the interactive student edition here. As a teacher, if you want to work from this view, you certainly can. You can just work in the interactive student edition as you're just as I'm projecting it to you virtually. You can do the same thing with your students, and you can go through all of the examples and everything with your students. All right, so this is one of the ways that you can present material from a distance. However, I think the better way to present the material is from the Realize platform instead of the interactive student edition. Now let me show you what I mean. So click on the Realize tab. We'll exit out of this. And here we see, all the different versions of the e-text. I'm going to click on Table of Contents above the thin black line. And that's going to take us back to this page and all of the components in our program. I'm going to go down to topic 7. And we are in lesson 3. So here at the topic level, First of all, let me just back up, make sure we're all on the same page here. This is the highest level of the program, the table of contents level that we started at. I choose topic 7. It's the same thing as a chapter, but we call it a topic because we borrowed that language right from the standards. So going to topic 7, and here we are at the topic level. This is the middle level of the program. And then we jump into the deepest level of the program, which is the lesson level, by clicking 7-3, and now we see all of the components that make up lesson 7 in one, easy to navigate location here. All right. So at the top of the page, here's a direct link to the teacher's edition. It will open right to this lesson 7-3. Here's a direct link to the interactive student edition. Again, it will put you and your students right there in the exact location in the interactive student edition. And then this is where we see the 4 steps of the lesson plan. Those 4 steps are explore. That's the first header. The second step is understand and apply. That's the biggest part of the lesson. The third step is practice and problem solving. And then finally, we see the last step, assess and differentiate. So we're going to go back up to step 1. I call this the backstage area of the lesson because, just like with any play that you might go see, we all know there's all kinds of stuff, behind the scenes, behind the curtain. There's, lots of different sets and props and things like that. Same here, behind the curtains, you have all these components that you can serve up to your students. And then when you are ready to present, you go on the stage by clicking that resource. So since I want to start off with Explore and Reason with my students, maybe we want to review the work they did last night. I can click there, and this takes me into presentation mode, and here's that same interactivity. Got the same slider that we've built with Desmos to play with, and so we can, have a discussion as a class. We can write our answers here. Respond to the prompts. Always look, when you're in presentation mode, always look in the bottom right-hand corner. This opening activity has 2 parts, so I'll need to click the right arrow. Takes me to another page here. And we can adjust the angle again. We can adjust the raise here if I want to. And, answer more questions, etc. After we work through this part, rather than disrupt the presentation by going backstage and selecting the next item for my presentation, I'll just go to this drop-down menu in the very top, and then I can very quickly navigate to the next thing I want to show my students. So here's the second example. I can play the video if I want. Also notice that throughout you're going to see these things, drop downs for, how to reason the math, common errors, things like that. Here's that lesson essential question. That's so important. And then again, we look at 1 of 2. So after we finish this instructional part of the example, here we see the try-its. And so you may direct your students to do the try-its online in their interactive student edition, or as an assignment on their assignment list, and I'll show you how to create it as an assignment later, or in their student companion like we talked about before. When you're finished with that example, we can navigate to the third example. Or maybe I want to skip those examples and go down to additional example 4. I can go in any order I want from here. So I'm not locked in place. Maybe I need to go backwards and cover something that the students didn't understand to begin with. So it gives you ultimate flexibility in choosing where you want to go within the lesson as you're presenting. And then when you're finished, you can just hit the exit button, takes you backstage. And one of the things you'll notice as you read the Teacher's Edition program overview or look at the Teacher's Edition and the pacing guide is that these lessons are basically it's designed to be 2 days per lesson. 2 50-minute periods per lesson is typically what this looks like. The exception to that would be the 3-act math That's a single day. But each lesson is 2 days. And so you could, potentially cover half of the material, go all the way up to the end of example 3, and then you finish your session. And then the next day, when students come back, you go to your backstage area and open up example 4 and just hit the ground running from here. And so that's how you can use the Realize platform as part of your presentation tool when you are presenting to your students. So I'll hit the exit button, and I'm going to pause there for a second, Joe, to see if anyone has any questions about how to either use the Realize platform as a presentation tool, or how all of these pieces, the Realize platform, the Interactive Student Edition, and the regular Student Edition, does anyone have any questions about how all of those relate to each other?
So I'm not sure if anybody has a question. Oh, wait, Amy has her hand up. But before we go to Amy, Sarah asks, is there a way to bookmark where you left off?
So in the Realize platform, there is not a way to bookmark. So the short answer to that is no. Now, in the textbook, if you're looking at the student edition or the teacher edition, you can always click the flag at the top and bookmark that particular page. So that would be one way to bookmark, where you are.
Great, thank you. Okay, Amy, go ahead, unmute.
Good afternoon. Is there a way to just assign a portion of the realized problems from the interactive, or do you have to, like example at the top, it has 7.3 for the lesson, and it has, but you have to assign the whole thing. Is there a way you can pick and choose some of the problems, but not all of them off of that, like you would
Absolutely.
from a quiz?
Yep, you betcha. And in fact, that's the next thing that we're going to be talking about is how you can, like you said, Amy, you can assign the whole lesson, but sometimes that can be overwhelming for students. But you can also assign just individual components from the lesson. So remember how I said that you may want students to do this explore and reason activity at home ahead of time. Well,
Yes.
if you do, then you can just click that assign button right here on, and notice each component has an assign button. So you're going to assign one at a time. Click that assign button, and it'll bring up this assignment screen. You can call it whatever you want. You can change the title, but I'll choose a start date. And this is a good way for us to demonstrate how to create assignments. So this is perfect timing. Let's choose a start date and a due date, and you'll have to forgive my dogs are having a my daughter's getting ready to walk the dogs, and so they're super excited. All right, so choose a start date, a due date, and by the way, if you students won't see this assignment until the start date. So if you're one of those super organized teachers and you know what you're doing, March 23rd of 2024, then you can select that date and your students won't see it until then. And then we choose a due date. There's the due date. And now I can assign this resource to my whole class. I've got a class called Period 1, Algebra 1. So I just start typing in those letters, PER, and everything, with those 3 letters, PER, pops up, and I'll assign that to my first period class. Or maybe I want to assign this to my advanced students. I created a group called Advanced. So I'll choose my advanced students. I can also assign to individual students. I'm going to give this to Hermione Granger. And maybe I'm going to give it to Katniss Everdeen as well. So I can type in individual student names and push that component out to those students. So the point is you have a lot of flexibility here in terms of who's going to get this, and it's all from one pop-up screen. I don't have a period 2 class, but I could type in period, and a period 2 would pop up, and I could assign it to that. So basically, I could assign this to all my Algebra 1 classes or Algebra 2 classes all at the same time if I wanted to. So once I've chosen everyone I want, I'll click the assign button. And now just this piece is going to show up on the student's assignment list. Let me show you what that looks like. So from a teacher point of view, I can review assignments that I've created by clicking the classes button. And this is the class that I just pushed out the assignment to. I'll click assignments from that class. And at the very top of the list, they go in descending order from the top down. So this is the most recent assignment that I've added, the Explore and Reason. Now, students simply have to click on this just one time and it will open the activity. Teachers have to click twice, once to bring up this menu where you can edit the assignment if you want, and then preview. And then this is what it's going to look like when the students click on it. And here we have that opening activity that your students can do. And it's just that one piece. This way, you're not, killing your students with 10 million different things that they have to work through. You can focus specifically on the things that you want your students to work on. So I'm going to switch back, and I'm going to click the, and by the way, this is something to keep in mind. To exit out of that, always look for the exit button, top left. We'll go back to Realize. Right now we're in classes, as we're looking at the assignments we've created. This is the list. I can also check assignments by student as well. If I click the Browse button at the top of the page, it takes me back to where we are. Our teachers' resources. I'll click Algebra 2, and we get back into the table of contents. And then, back to topic 7 and lesson 3. And I'm able to, again, if I want to assign just one component, I can do that all the way through as many times as I like. Now, one of the ways, if you want to assign more than one thing, then I suggest you use a playlist. So, yeah, we definitely want to assign this Explore and Reason. But you know what? I also want them to do this conceptual understanding example and this application example. So you see I have 1, 2, 3 things. And at the bottom of every lesson are 2 videos. These are great tutorial videos that your students can refer to. You know what? I'm going to include both these videos just because I want them to show up on my students' assignment list. And that way it's right there for them and it's easy for them to access. I mean, they can already access it on their own, but honestly, how many of our students are going to go looking for these things on their own? But if I put it in an assignment, they're more likely to check it out. So I've selected those things, and I'm going to say Add Selected to Playlist. I click that, Add Selected Playlist, and I'm going to create a new playlist. We'll call this Algebra 2 playlist, and I want to put today's date just so I can keep up with it. And create playlist. All right. Then I have the chance to go to playlist, or I can close this playlist. If I close the playlist, I can go anywhere else in the curriculum and choose additional items to add to the playlist. So maybe I want to go back into Algebra 1 and find something from there that would fit in with this lesson. So anyway, I think you guys get the idea. But when I'm ready, and I finish building my playlist, I'll go to playlist. Here is here's all the components I put in that playlist. But you know what? I don't like this order. I really want them to watch the 2 videos first, or maybe I want them to watch this video before they do the Explore and Reason, and then this video before the application. You get the idea. I can rearrange things. And when I'm done, I'll save it. And then I click Assign All. So we see the same assignment bar box pop up. And it's available today. And I want them to do it tonight, or maybe 2 nights. And I'll assign it to my algebra class. I click the Assign button. And the reason I did that is because I want you to see what it looks like now. From the student point of view, they're going to click on classes, and they're going to see their assignment list. And here is that assignment. Let's see, where is my playlist I just created? Let's see, due date. I do it like that. I can find it. Go to the next page here. Let's see. Why didn't it show up there? Did I assign it to this class? Algebra 1. No, I did not. I'm in the wrong class. I'm in period 1, Algebra 1. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I should name my classes a little better next time. All right, so here we are. So this is the Algebra 2 playlist, 730, that I just created. And when your students click on it, it will look like this. And when they open the first thing in that playlist, the view is going to change. And the first activity will show up. And now look how each one of the components from that playlist appear as a tab along the top. So this is just a super convenient way to bundle everything together that I want my students to focus on. We'll watch the video. Once they watch the video, there'll be a little button up here that says turn it in. They'll click that, and so you'll get feedback that they actually, saw the video. Now it won't tell you if they actually watched it, but at least you'll see that that they did turn it in. They acknowledge that they got it. Then here's explore and reason. That same activity we saw before. They can do all their work. Anything that they write here, this will be visible. To teachers once they turn it in. And then we go to the next thing and the next thing and so on. You get the idea. To make sure students know to look, in the bottom to see if there are additional parts here. So this one has 2 parts, and they answer questions here and so on until they finish. And then at the end, there'll be a turn it in button. And when they hit turn it in, then you as a teacher will be able to, see the responses. You can go in and see if, Johnny, accessed the video, or what Johnny wrote for, the explore and reason section of this question. So that's how playlists work. Now, there's a caveat to playlists. It's going to, if anything has an auto-graded feature, and many of these things do, but some don't. For instance, if it's a free response, it will not auto-grade free response. That's something that if you want to assign a grade to it, you're going to have to go in and check it yourself. But if there is an auto-graded feature, it's basically going to combine all the scores into one. And to figure out the score in individual pieces, you're going to have to do some digging. So if you want to know the score for something specifically, you should assign it as a separate entity. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. But Joe, I'm going to pause here again and ask for questions one more time, and then we can take a quick break. Are there any questions on playlists or any comments about playlists?
We do have a hand up, and we have some questions.
Good.
So where do we want to start? Crystal, do you want to go ahead and comment or ask a question?
Yeah, I can. I just, so I know that if sometimes the students forget to push that arrow next button, so they don't answer all the parts. Is there a way to, and then they submit it, is there a way to unsubmit a student's work so they can go back and fix it, or do you have to just reassign it?
So yeah, right now you have to reassign it. So the assignment will be in your teacher's assignment list. And you can just go back to, let me just show you quickly, and you probably already know what I'm talking about here, but go back to the assignments. And so Johnny submitted this too soon. Well, you can just click on this, and let's see, you can edit, and then here you can see, can you rename it here and assign it? I can't remember. Oh no, I can't do this because it's already this one is already been started. But anyway, basically you can just reassign it to your students. Yeah. So you would just reassign that component to your students. And but that's another thing that I know that our development team is working on is how about, assignments by student? Maybe I need to go here and look at this assignment and then reassign that thing to, in this case, Thomas Magnum. Right now, you would have to go back to the individual component and reassign it. So a long answer for, fairly simple response to what it should have been.
And then Sarah has a question for you, Sarah.
Hello, I was wondering if we do the assign selected when we're assigning instead of doing the playlist, can we edit it later? And when we edit, does it revert back to assigning all of the selected stuff that we didn't want?
Okay, good questions. I'm just going to jump into a topic for the sake of time. There are two different options here when you pick individual components. And you notice those options. So let me just check a couple of things here. Now, at the top, you have assign selected or add selected to playlist. Assign selected is just going to assign those components you've chosen to your students as a bundled assignment, and it's going to be a one-time deal. So once your students receive it, that's it. You won't be able to edit it. You won't be able to change the order. It also won't show up in your library. Notice that in my library, all the playlists I've created show up right here in my library. I can, filter by playlist. So if you do that bundled assignment thing, it's a one-time deal. Your students will, sorry, let me go back to the content here. Your students will get that bundled assignment, and they can do it and they can turn it in as a single assignment. But it's not saved in your library, and maybe that's, maybe you don't want to save every single playlist, and that's fine. But you can't edit the order, and once you assign it, it's kind of gone into the ether. The playlist, on the other hand, you're able to edit the order. Later on, you're able to add additional things to that playlist. And it's also saved in your library so that you can very quickly access it next year, too. So those are the differences in the playlist. Now, you also mentioned, does it revert back to the original? You will never lose any of the original stuff here. So you can do all the customizations you want. You can rearrange things. You will always be able to find the original content. And hopefully that answered the question about the customizations.
It does. Because in the spring I would use just the assign
Selected.
Assign selected, and then I would try to edit something, and then it would give me everything that's on there. So I understand I have to use a playlist.
You betcha. Yep.
Got
And
it.
there are advantages and disadvantages to both, but I find myself referring mostly to playlists here. All right, what's next, Joe?
So the only other question I think I answered, but I want to make sure it's clear. We had asked about where to find the student companion worksheets, and I wrote in the chat that the student companion worksheets will, it's a digital, it's not digital, it's the physical book the students will get. The reason we see it digitally with you is because you have scanned those in, and that's why you have it.
Exactly. So I broke our own copyright laws to make a digital copy of that to show you guys what it looks like. But yeah, so every year you'll like Joe said, you'll get a copy of that student companion.
And the students will get that copy, and most of your sites should already have all of that already there. So I think we're ready for a break, Carlton.
All right, cool. So let's take 5 and we'll jump in shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. 5 minutes goes fast. All right, so we were going through the lesson. We just talked about playlists and how to bundle assignments. We know how to assign individual components to our students or to groups of students or to our entire class. Let's talk about what happens at the end of an assignment or near the end of a lesson, rather. So here we go. We've gone through, the different components of the assignment. We might go through the whole, I keep saying assignment. We've gone through the different components of the lesson, and we might choose day 1 to go through all of the instructional activities. And then day 2 of that lesson, maybe that's when we want students to do practice and problem solving, and we give our assessments and so on. There are lots of different ways that you can use the 2 days per lesson. But once we finish, once we get through the end of the lesson, let's look at the teacher's edition. In the teacher's edition here, this is lesson 7-3. I am going to go to the end of the lesson so I can, scroll through the teacher's guide. And once I get to the end of a lesson, we get a chance to pause and we get the opportunity to see what the students understood. If they, if they're starting to grasp the concepts that we have given them. So we can see on the teacher's edition here, let me blow this up. Here's a copy of the student page from the teacher's edition. And by the way, if you are following along in the teacher's edition, this is page 380. At the end of the lesson, we see these 2 sections, do you understand and do you know how? Now, remember I mentioned that at the beginning of the lesson, in step 2, right at the beginning, we introduced the lesson essential question. Well, check this out. The very first question we ask them as part of this, do you understand, is that very lesson essential question that we introduced at the beginning of the lesson. So if you don't have time to ask anything else, this would be your one go-to to see if students actually understood what we were trying to teach them from that lesson. There are 2 sections here. This is do you understand section and the do you know how section. Do you understand? This focuses on the conceptual understanding side of things. Do you know how? That focuses more on procedural skill and fluency side of things. So you got your DOK level 2, DOK level 3 on the left side, and this is mostly DOK level 1 stuff. They're both just as important. It's just that there's a different focus to each one of these things. Now online, they look like this. So here I am back in the Realize platform, and in when I click from the backstage area to presenter mode, each question has its own page, and so I can write the response to the lesson essential question. Then I would go to the next one, write my response, and by the way, I can check my answer. This is the correct answer. Very quickly, your students are going to discover, all I have to do is write some nonsense, and then the correct answer is going to pop up. And they'll close this, and then they're going to go back and try to change it, and guess what? They can't edit it now. So anyway, that's another way that they can, oops, I hit the wrong button. That's another way they can, answer the do you understand, do you know how questions is digitally. But the third way, so we have, the first way we talked about how it appears in the student edition. The second way is they can respond to those questions digitally. And then the last way is that student companion. At the end of each lesson, we have space for our students to answer the do you understand, do you know how parts of the lesson. So that's how they can. So that student companion really is a handy tool. All right. So the from Do You Understand, Do You Know How, in the lesson, I'll exit back to the backstage area here. And scroll back down. So here we are. We're at the end of step 2. Then we get into practice and problem solving. And there are a couple of things I want to point out here. So first of all, at the end of each lesson in every math textbook that has been printed in probably the past 100 years, there's a problem set. And so there's certainly no exception to that rule here. So I'm looking at the teacher's edition. And if I look at page 381 in the teacher's edition, I can see the beginning of the practice and problem solving section. So these are the problems that your students will see at the end of their lesson in their textbook. And this particular lesson has 39 different questions. And they start at problem 12 and end at problem 39. I shouldn't say they have 39 questions. It starts at problem 12 and ends at problem 39. All right. I'm talking about that because if you look at Realize, and you see this practice and problem solving section in Realize, there's a Math Excel assignment here that you can give to your students. So let's click on Math Excel, and we're going to talk a little bit about what Math Excel is. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to play with Math Excel already, but if not, this is going to blow your mind. Math Excel is just amazing. I'll click the Start button. This gives me a chance to preview the questions. Now, notice how look at the top of the page. This numbering scheme: 7, 3, 12. Well, we're on topic 7, lesson 3. And where does this 12 come from? Well, that 12 happens to be the same problem number as the first problem in our practice and problem solving list. So what we can see here is that, yeah, we have problems in the back of the at the end of each lesson that the students can do just like traditional problems, you know, since the beginning of time. But with Math Excel, those problems have suddenly become a very powerful learning tool. So check it out. You know, students can write in some, you know, answer here. They can check their answer, and they get immediate feedback. Are you right or wrong? Okay, that's great. So let's go back up here, and we'll try something else. We'll check answer again. Nope, still wrong. Notice how this has changed to final check in the bottom right-hand corner.